you must be glad about what you're hearing this morning from Gaza.
Of course, we've all wanted the Israeli hostages to be released to their families. We've all wanted aid to get into Gaza to support innocent civilians who have been caught in the middle of this. And it's welcome progress today. But as you've heard already in great detail, there's still more work to be done. And the UK and our allies should do what they can to ensure that that keeps going in the right direction.
All right, let me ask you something that I put to Laura Trott. We saw yet another pro-Palestinian demonstration yesterday in London. There's going to be a march against anti-Semitism today. Are there going to be Labour MPs on that demonstration? And if so, how many?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm here in Bristol. I'm not in London. I'm not sure who's going to what. I understand that one of my colleagues from the Shadow Cabinet, Peter Kyle, will be in London today, but I'm afraid I'm not across the detail of the logistics of the march today.
Oh, well, that's interesting because I think that the guidance from the Labour leadership was that they shouldn't go on the Saturday demos, but the guidance that you've had is that today's OK.
I've not had any guidance from the Labour Party about the demo today or the demo yesterday, in fact. So I'm not sure what it is that you're referring to, but all that I would say is that demonstrations, when they are peaceful, are clearly allowed and permitted in our democracy. Here in Bristol, for example, we've had demonstrations.
The Labour leader said some weeks ago that front benches shouldn't be on what were considered controversial demonstrations, and there was no question that he was referring to the pro-Palestinian demonstrations on Saturday. So what I'm really wondering is whether you've had similar guidance about today's march, and frankly, even if you haven't, were you in London, is it a march that you would consider going on yourself?
So look, there is no distinction between peaceful marches on either side of the debate on this issue, as there wouldn't be on any other issue. And I know that politicians, whether they've been MPs or other types of politicians, have been on different types of marches. The key thing is that all marches should be peaceful, and when they are, they're entirely proper and should be allowed to happen. The issues that we had earlier on a few weeks ago was that some of these marches were highlighted as concerns from the Met Police. We needed to ensure that they were being done safely and properly. When they're not being done
I don't want to go back over that history.
Where there had to be arrests, then that's a different issue.
I don't want to go back over that history, but I'm just asking you, and I just wondered if I can get a direct answer to that. If I were Jewish, members of the Jewish community in this country, I might be asking myself, why is it so difficult for a politician to say that there is a march against anti-Semitism? If I had the opportunity, I would be on it.
It's a decision for individual politicians.
Yeah, I'm asking what your individual decision would be.
Sorry, could you just say that again to me?
I am asking what your individual decision would be if you had the opportunity to go on this march.
Oh, yep. Yes, well, I've just said I've not been on any marches whilst I've been here in Bristol. I'm not in London today.
That's not the question I'm asking you. I'm asking you, if you had the opportunity to go on this march, would you go on it?
I just told you, Trevor, twice. I've not gone to any marches in the last few weeks, and I don't intend on going any marches in the future weeks because I represent constituents who have different concerns and different opinions about this issue. It's my job to represent all of them. That's why I'm not going on any marches. I've given you that answer now 3 times.
Sorry. So if you're saying this to one of your Jewish constituents, you do realise how that would be heard, that actually a simple statement that I will spend half an hour joining in an act of solidarity with Jewish people against anti-Semitism is something that I just can't commit to, because for what reason?
Well, that's a slightly different question, Trevor.
OK, well, answer that one.
What you've just said to me is a... No, sorry. What you've just said to me, Trevor, just forgive me whilst I put this back in my ear. What you've just said to me, Trevor, is a peaceful vigil in solidarity with people about what happened in Israel. Of course I would stand in solidarity with my constituents on that issue. But let me tell you again, there's a difference between going on marches and a difference between talking to my constituents locally, and I talk to all of them, irrespective of what their opinions or their views are. I'm very comfortable about that fact, but I'm just giving you a statement of fact, which is that I've not been on any marches and I don't intend to go on any. That is very different to not representing my constituents.
Okay, let's talk about your actual ministerial or shadow ministerial portfolio. You're responsible for counting the government's pennies. Your boss, Rachel Reeves, says she wouldn't reverse the 2p national insurance cut, won't change the government's plans for 1% growth in spending annually. What would you be doing that the Tories aren't doing, other than, you don't need to repeat the non-dom scrapping, because Rachel's told us that several times. What would you be doing that's material, that's different from the Tories?
Well, the fact is that the reason this autumn statement won't go anywhere near clearing up the damage of the last 13 years is because the economy and our public services have ended up in a deeply, deeply difficult position. There are deep structural problems in our economy, whether that's on the labour market and skills, whether it's on business investment and growth, whether it's on the productivity of our public services. So any one autumn statement won't be able to turn that around. And so what Labour would be doing, and this is why Keir Starmer talks about our missions and an end to kind of sticking plaster politics, is rolling up our sleeves and doing the hard work on fixing those fundamental problems across the economy. Now, that's not going to be easy, and it will take time to do, not least because if we do win the next election, the inheritance, the fiscal inheritance from the Conservatives makes that very, very difficult. But we've said that all of our policies will be subject to our fiscal rules, and we'll be turning the country around on that basis.
All right. The big story this week has been the immigration numbers. 745,000 last year, 670,000 at the first pass. This year, probably going to be much higher than that when we finally see the figures. Are you OK with that, or do you agree with Laura Trott that that's too high?
Well, the recent numbers have been exceptionally high compared to normal, and that means that there are issues in the economy, because why would that happen otherwise? So we do want that number to come down, because what it points to is that there are problems in terms of the UK labour market, but also the way in which we run our public services, where we're having to rely on a very, very high number of work visas from workers overseas, especially in our health and social care system. Now, their contribution is very welcome. We wouldn't be able to keep the show on the road without them. But the Tories have to really think about, how do you get to a position where you can provide the job opportunities and the training opportunities to people here in the UK first, and ensure that our public services are running efficiently enough so that you don't have to rely on enormous numbers of people in a very inefficient system. Yeah,
let me ask you about what you would do rather than what the Tories are doing wrong. Rachel Reeves said in the last few days that public sector workers could not expect a pay rise. And that means those in the health service and those in the social care system. If you want to bring down immigration, but you won't give people a higher pay level to come into the NHS and social care sector, how do you expect to fill the vacancies other than by immigration? I mean, how do you square that circle? You want to get rid of the immigrants who currently do the jobs. You won't pay British people more money. What happens to the NHS and social care?
Sure. There are three different things that I'll point to, Trevor. The first is that if you talk to any of the public sector workers who have been on strike recently,
we just need one at least.
It's not just. Okay, well, it's not just about pay, essentially. Public sector workers want to feel that they work in a supported environment where they're able to do their job properly. And because of the mismanagement of our public services over the last 13 years, they don't feel that they're able to treat and look after their patients fairly. So that's why you have to fix the fundamental problems in our public services. That's why Wes Streeting, my colleague, the Shadow Health Secretary, has set out his plans for a national care service and also the workforce plan for the NHS. The Conservatives have taken a bit of that, and that's welcome, but there's still more to be done. But you've got to get to the root cause of the problem. It's not all just about additional money, and it certainly shouldn't just be about hundreds of thousands of extra workers coming in from overseas.